Hello there. Welcome once again to another episode of Orange Weekly presented by Crouse Health. My name is Brent Axe. Great to have you back here, friends. If you're watching live on, let's see where we are today. We're on the Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page. We're on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page. We're on YouTube, where you should like and follow us at Syracuse Orange Sports as well. So much going on here, friends. And let's just jump right in the pool and get to it here. Your comments, your questions, your response. There's Marty, my guy from Florida. Marty, we're getting ready for about a foot of snow here in central New York, so I hope you're enjoying things by the beach down there, my friend. Wherever you're watching from today, always love to hear where you're watching from, by the way. So be like Marty. Tell us where you're watching from today and just lay it on me. What you just want to talk about when it comes to Syracuse sports. I got a few things we'll discuss. We got a national champion in Syracuse, New York. How cool is that? As Greg jumps right in and says, we got a football team that's going through a very interesting transition at this point. We got a basketball team that could see a lineup change coming and a tougher than you would think matchup against Cornell coming up Saturday at the JMA Wireless Dome. Yes, thank you, Marty, for reminding us you have 6 inches of white sand to go sit in here. Good for you, buddy. But I hope you're enjoying it for sure. All right, let's start with what Greg noted there. What a game, a match, as they would say in the soccer world, right? As the Syracuse men's soccer team wins its first ever national championship, they take down Indiana. Indiana, by the way, who is a juggernaut. Indiana, who's been to 17 national title games, won 8 national titles, 36 straight years in the NCAA tournament, but not meant to be this year, as this was a team of destiny in Syracuse, New York, that went out there and got it done. What a match it was. It goes to PKs. We've seen a couple of World Cup matches go to PKs. The national championship in men's soccer goes to PKs. And what a story this team was. Nathan Apuku, what a player he is. The goaltender, Russell Shealy, makes a huge save there in PKs. It allows Sinclair to come in and hit the winning shot. This was the first year men's soccer they did not do sudden death overtime, I should say. They played a full 20-minute session, and that wasn't enough to do it. This was just a fun team to watch. And as Jim notes here, Syracuse, the only school besides Maryland to win a national championship in football, basketball, soccer, and lacrosse. That is incredible to know that those two stand alone at this moment. And I love their coach, Ian McIntyre. I loved how this team played this year. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest soccer guy in the world. I have nothing against it. It's just not something that crosses my radar screen that often, but I love a good story, and this team was an incredible story. So the team itself was great, but what was a really amazing experience, and I got a lot of great feedback on this, and I hope you had a chance to read the story. I wrote a column about the championship, the people at the Dome on Monday night that were basically ignoring a Syracuse Monmouth basketball game and watching the big screens to see the soccer team win, timed out nicely as the PKs ended at halftime, and then people could focus on the second half of the game. We're back. Sorry, knocked myself off the screen for a second there. Don't hit the wrong button, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Anyway, okay. Guys, just let me know if you see me again in the comments there. I disappeared for a second, but I think I think we're back and rolling here. So just confirm there in the comments for me that I'm back and we're rolling and this whole thing didn't reset. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button there. Anyway, so this soccer team gets back from its national championship win. Okay, we're back. Thank you, Greg. It's 2:00 in the morning. It's frigid in Syracuse. It's 14 degrees, right? There's about 50 to 60 people that came, Jesse Edwards included, from the Syracuse basketball team. Police escort. They come in. We're talking to Coach McIntyre, seeing our breath as we're asking him questions. Small media contingent that came out. Shout out to everybody that did that the other night. And it was just incredible. And then Coach McIntyre goes over to his car. He's got to scrape off his car. It's been there for a week, and he's got a ticket. Who gives the national championship coach a ticket? I'm sure he had a tag to park In this case, it was the parking lot right by Coyne Stadium there, the football facility, if you've driven by and know it's Syracuse. It's like, who gives that guy a ticket? So hopefully somebody took care of that up at Syracuse, and we don't have to make the national championship coach pay that ticket for parking, which is ridiculous that he got that in the first place. But that's a whole different topic for a different day. What a team. What a story. Incredible. It's the 80th national championship in Syracuse history. And this has been a hell of a year for the soccer team. Not only the championship, their most wins ever. They were the first to win their division, win the ACC tournament, and the national championship, along with North Carolina, who did that in 2011 in the ACC. Syracuse had its first two players in the World Cup this year that both played for Team Canada. An incredible run. And man, I love Coach Mack. He's just a fun dude to talk to. He was kind of breaking my chops on the radio yesterday because we talked about, coming back and, that experience in the cold. And he was just laying it on. He's like, oh, you look miserable out there, but and then he told the story of getting the parking ticket. He's a fun dude. It's a fun team, and it's a great story. And congratulations to them. And really appreciate everybody that read the story. If you didn't get a chance, hope you can check it out, and really enjoyed it. And I'm by no means a soccer expert, but I love a good story, and it was great to cover that. So from football to football, I guess we'll go, as it has been a really interesting week in Syracuse football land, right? Tony White, the defensive coordinator, goes to Nebraska for the same position. Certainly he's going to get paid more money at Nebraska. I believe he got a promotion of sorts as well with Matt Rule there. The offensive coordinator, Robert Anae. This all happens on the same night, right? I think it was a week ago today, if I'm not mistaken. Goes to NC State. So you're thinking, as a Syracuse football fan, what in the wide world of sports is going on here, right? Is there a mass exodus? Is Dino Babers leaving? What is happening? There was some rumbles. We talked about it on Orange Weekly last week that Purdue was at the very least looking at Dino Babers, or he made sense for that job. They've since hired another coach, and certainly you're not going to see Dino Babers coaching at Purdue anytime soon here. But when you really look into it, so Tony White just got offered a better opportunity. My colleague Emily Leiker had an exclusive interview with Tony. I hope you guys got a chance to read. It's not good that Syracuse lost both its offensive and defensive coordinator on the same day. But in the case of Tony White, I'm surprised that he left for a same position. I'm not surprised he left. Like, Tony White was going to get a head coaching gig. He's still going to get a head coaching gig. What he has done for that Syracuse defense has been incredible. He left it better than he found it. I think that's all you can ask a coach that is kind of on borrowed time. Nebraska, we can argue whether it's a better job than Syracuse. It's certainly a better tradition, more notable, more money, Big Ten over the ACC. There's a lot of upgrades going on there. Another challenge to fix a broken defense and a broken team, right? That's why Matt Rule was brought in there to fix what Scott Frost couldn't at Nebraska. Scott Frost, who once upon a time Syracuse fans wanted to take over for Scott Schaefer back in the day. So that wasn't good, but with Anae, at the very least, there was an instant transition. As a matter of fact, about 10 minutes after that story broke Thursday night, while we're all reacting to the Tony White news, I confirmed, along with a couple other reporters in Syracuse, that Jason Beck was going to step in as the offensive coordinator. So that helps absorb that blow. Beck has 13 years with Robert Anae at BYU, at Virginia, at Syracuse this year. He's developed a number of great quarterbacks: Bryce Perkins, Taysom Hill, Brennan Armstrong. They worked wonders with Garrett Schrader. Beck, who's 42 years old, he's ready to be an offensive coordinator. So at the very least, that was a wash, right? Robert Anae came in, he changed around the offense, but now not only does Jason Beck step in and can run that same offense, he can put his own spin on it, right? And he's younger, he relates to the players. Not that Robert Anae didn't, but Robert Anae's in his 60s. He's got family in North Carolina. His son actually coaches at Campbell University down there. He's closer to retirement than not. Jason Beck is, ready to step in there and do it. So at the very least, Syracuse had that, right? So now the question is, who takes over as defensive coordinator? Nick Monroe is going to do it on a temporary basis for the Pinstripe Bowl. But who they bring in long-term is the bigger question. Now, there was some stories out there yesterday that Rocky Long, who mentored Tony White, he is the godfather of the 3-3-5 defense. He's 72 years old, is going to step in and be the defensive coordinator. That's not official. That's just somebody that's on Dino's radar. Dino obviously a couple of years ago when he was looking for a DC. First, it was Zach Arnett, who is now the head coach at Mississippi State. And of course, we send our condolences to everybody at Mississippi State and losing Mike Leach, who passed away this week. Zach Arnett was the defensive coordinator at Syracuse for about 5 minutes until Mike Leach talked him into going there instead of here. So that brought Syracuse Tony White. Rocky Long's the guy that mentored both of those coaches and is the godfather of the 3-3-5 defense. So if he steps in and takes over, here's what I like about that. I like the continuity of the 3-3-5. Syracuse is going to stick with the 3-3-5, and I think that's a great idea. What I don't like about that is, and I don't look nothing against Rocky Long, but he's 72 years old. Look at Jason Beck. I'd rather have a 42-year-old coordinator than a 72-year-old coordinator. I don't want to do ageism here, but I think you need, a younger approach there. So if Rocky Long comes in and mentors Nick Monroe for a year or two, teaches him the ins and outs of the 3-3-5, you'd be apt to bring in somebody that's an expert on that defense. I'm all for it, but to bring in Rocky Long on a permanent basis, I'm not sure that's such a good idea, right? I mean, Jim Boeheim is 78 years old. It's not like we don't are used to older coaches here at Syracuse, but I like that idea as long as there's a kind of a transition plan in place. And I don't think Syracuse can afford to lose Nick Monroe. He's an excellent recruiter. I know the transfer portal is just as important, as we'll talk about here shortly. But, this is a situation where I think you stick in-house both ways, Jason Beck and Nick Monroe, if Rocky Long does come in, because the list of people that know the 3-3-5 is very short. So we'll see where that goes and how that develops. But, man, this is a busy time. So you've got recruiting coming up. Signing day is Wednesday, early signing day, which has essentially become signing day now, right? You got to hit the transfer portal, which we'll talk about here shortly. And now you got to find a defensive coordinator and perhaps another coach or two. Who knows if Tony White searches for some assistance from Syracuse to come with him to Nebraska. We don't know that at this point, but it would be natural they would probably ask one coach or two to come with him out there to Nebraska. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So there is a lot going on here. And one thing that's going on is the transfer portal is starting to bite a little harder on Syracuse. Deuce Chestnut being the most significant name on that list. The sophomore cornerback who started 2 years at Syracuse, third-team All-ACC a year ago, honorable mention this year, has entered the portal. That's 8 players in the portal for Syracuse. Now, the interesting thing is Jeremiah Wilson was in the portal briefly, withdrew his name out of the portal. In terms of players that Syracuse got out of the portal, Jaden Gould is a 4-star cornerback, spent a year at Nebraska. So you essentially trade him for Deuce Chestnut. We'll see if Deuce Chestnut ends up at Nebraska with Tony White. Deuce Chestnut clearly was not happy that Tony White left based on his social media reaction. Just kind of from what I've heard, he was pretty close with Coach White, and that was one of the reasons he decided to leave Syracuse. You also bring in a transfer defensive lineman, Braylon Ingram from Alabama. Now, anytime you can convince somebody from Alabama to come to Syracuse, that's a good thing. 4-star player, class of 2019, a defensive lineman who spent 4 seasons at Alabama, 6'4", 291, did not play last year. So the issue, he's had a couple of injuries, right? But he was a top 30 player in the state of Florida during his initial recruitment period. And look, you go to Alabama, even a top-rated player like that is going to have a hard time cracking the lineup. He comes to Syracuse, he'll play, he'll make an impact. Defensive line is a position of need, obviously. So I think Dino and company have done a great job in the portal. You get a solid cornerback, you get a great defensive lineman. They've also targeted a couple offensive linemen. DeColdest, boy, I forget his last name. I'll look it up while we're talking about here, which is a terrific name, by the way. And the NIL opportunities in Syracuse, New York, when your name is DeColdest, off the page. He's a wide receiver. I know he's making his decision soon, and could be as soon as today, as a matter of fact. We'll keep an eye on that. And Syracuse has been very aggressive in the portal. So DeColdest Crawford is his name. Just wanted to make sure we got that right. So, look, this is the new normal we're in, folks. You're going to lose anywhere from, depending on what kind of situation you're in, 6 to 12 players. Coaches come and go. Transition's the name of the game. The inevitable thing is change, right? In college football, you can't really attach yourself to individual players, as sad as that is to say, because they could up and leave and find other opportunities in the portal. The portal giveth, the portal taketh away. That's just the bottom line in college sports today. I'm in favor of it. I think players should have options. I think they shouldn't be stuck somewhere. They're 18 to 22-year-olds trying to figure out what's best for them. You know, some of them have NFL aspirations. Some just want to play at the place that's best for them, where they will play. I don't think that's a bad thing that, you know, these players have a choice to go somewhere where they'll actually play instead of sitting on the bench. Not all of them will play in the National Football League. A small percentage of them will, but you want to enjoy your time in college, right? You don't want to be miserable and stick with a commitment just because you made that choice. You have options now between the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness. It's not perfect. There's a lot of flaws in both systems. I wouldn't be against tightening up some things today. I saw a report today. I believe the governor of Massachusetts is going to be named the new president of the NCAA. Maybe the NCAA will get a little teeth back here and regulate some of this stuff, because the NCAA right now is a joke. It's an absolute joke. And opening up the floodgates on name, image, and likeness in the portal was one of the things that set college sports to where it is now. Like it or hate it, I happen to be more in favor of it than not. But listen, you know, college sports we're in a fascinating time right now. Emily Liker wrote a great story you guys should read on syracuse.com too. There were some people concerned, would Syracuse have enough players on the defense for the Pinstripe Bowl upcoming against Minnesota? The answer is yes, by the way. They are a little thinner at cornerback now. Getting Jeremiah Wilson back was huge, but you have Clark, and he has some names down the list. Transfers cannot come in and play in the Pinstripe Bowl, in case you're wondering. So some of those names that we mentioned won't be eligible to play in the Pinstripe Bowl. Who plays in the Pinstripe Bowl continues to be a question. As of today, we have not heard what Sean Tucker's status is going to be for that game. We have not heard officially what Nickel Jones' status is going to be for that game, though I've seen him at practice. So I would imagine he's working his way back on the field and is going to play. Doesn't look like he's opted out of that game, so that's good news. And you will kind of see who else between Matthew Bergeron and some other players that were injured, or you're wondering if they're just going to go on and pursue NFL workouts, whether they're going to be in that game. And then, as we mentioned, we'll react to signing day next week on Orange Weekly, because it's Wednesday the 21st. But there's been a lot of offers out there. It's Christmas tree season. It's like in recruiting, coaches make the home visits and they always pose in front of the Christmas tree. Always enjoy seeing that flood my Twitter timeline at this point. So there's a lot going on in the football world here, and how Syracuse adjusts is going to be very interesting. And I think for the most part, I mean, you lost a couple guys you don't want to lose, Deuce Chestnut notably, but you just kind of have to build that in to the conversation these days. And no, that's kind of the new normal. We are in. But love the Jason Beck move. We'll see what happens at defensive coordinator. I think they should just promote Nick Monroe, frankly. He's ready. He's been patient. Can you be a recruiting guru and be a DC is the question. And a fair question at that, because I don't think you can dedicate all your resources to both. I think it's one or the other at this point. And as Claire points out here, there it is, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker is going to be the new NCAA president when his term is up in January. I think he officially takes over in March. For Mark Emmert, the empty suit who gets paid $2 million a year to, do nothing, basically, for the NCAA. That's not true, but the NCAA is just, its reputation is in tatters, by the way. And let's give Jim Boeheim his wins back while we're at it. Good transition into basketball, by the way. What a night it was at the JMA Wireless Dome Monday as Syracuse is trying to play Monmouth and everybody's watching the soccer game. Even the team got chastised a little bit by Coach Boeheim for kind of peeking up at the big board at times, watching at halftime. It was a weird vibe in the Dome. People were distracted. Like we said, it ended at halftime, so that put the full focus on the second half. Monmouth, a 1-9 team coming into the Dome on Monday, gave Syracuse all it could handle for the first half. The Orange pulled away in the second half. And the big thing now yes, Claire, can you get on that? We got to get Jim Boeheim his wins back. Let's start the lobbying session on that at this point. Jim Boeheim might have to make a lineup change coming up here. Let me pull up Mike Waters' story from syracuse.com and read it to you guys here. Not the whole thing. It's not story time with Uncle Brent, just the basics you need to know at this point. But you should read Mike's story and read Mike's mailbox as always, and the great work that Mike Waters does. Come on, computer. Come on now. There we go. All right, so this is from Mike's mailbox today, which Mike does a terrific job with weekly, saying that Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim has made it very clear he's been frustrated with the performance of a few players this season. Specifically, Boeheim has not been happy with freshman forward Chris Bell's lack of rebounds. As Boeheim said Monday night, quote, "I can't play somebody that can't get a rebound in a game. I just can't do it. We can't win that way. We're going to have to think about that and think about what we're going to do going forward." So are you going to have essentially two power forwards coming into the game to go along with Jesse Edwards? That's not ideal, but that appears to be the path that Jim Boeheim is going down. And look, here's the thing with Boeheim in his starting lineup. It's actually a couple of things, right? Number one is Jim Boeheim's starting lineup doesn't matter. It doesn't. It matters who's in the game when it matters, right? If you got a guy in Chris Bell who's get 0 rebounds, 1 rebound per game, shows no interest in digging in there and getting rebounds, you got to get him off the court and have him come off in a bench role, right? Chris Bell is a talented offensive player. He can shoot the three. Syracuse needs another consistent three-point shooter to go along with Joe Girard. That's kind of one of my fears when ACC play comes, that Syracuse won't have that, right? Justin Taylor can also do it, and Justin Taylor and Chris Bell, according to Boeheim, were kind of neck and neck anyway, but it's time to make that change. Here's where the starting lineup does matter. You can't give Chris Bell the status of being a starter and he gets 1 rebound a game or shows no interest in rebounding whatsoever. That doesn't work. You cannot play that position and not show any effort in rebounds. Malik Brown is a athletic specimen who tries his butt off under the boards. I feel that Jim Boeheim's right when he says that Malik's still got he's a freshman, like any freshman. He's got a lot to learn. There's some things that haven't quite come around, need a little more seasoning in his game, but I'll take the effort over somebody that shows none in trying to rebound, right? Because you got to give Jesse Edwards some relief there. Jesse has been phenomenal this season. He's averaging a double-double. He's one of the best players in the country at his position right now, one of the best players in the ACC at his position right now. You can't ask anything more from Jesse Edwards at this point. But, you know, as Greg asked here, where are the other rebounds going to come other than Jesse and the guards? That's the thing. I think Malik Brown is a better rebounder. Now, when you put, say, Justin Taylor in there, I'm not counting on him to rebound, but he can do it. And he's a terrific three-point shooter at this point. We mentioned what Malik Brown can do coming in there. So, look, John Bull has been terrific. He didn't play very well against Monmouth, but what more can you ask John Bull to do? Jimmy says right here, very hard to play a combo of Benny, Brown, and John Bull a jock at the same time. That's it. See, that's the trade-off here, is some of these lineups don't quite work, but I don't think Jim has a choice here. He's got to switch things up. He's got to get people out there that can rebound, that will rebound, and can give Syracuse more possessions. Because for Chris Bell to not show any interest in this, and look, this is where the risk comes in recruiting, right? You just don't know what you're getting sometimes. You're taking a risk. You're hoping that certain things fill in when they come to Syracuse. It's not like the coaches haven't told Chris Bell he's got to rebound, haven't taught him how to rebound, aren't, just hammering that in practice. Of course they are. But that message isn't getting through at this point. And look, rebounding is all, it's want to, it's desire, it's, sharpening your elbows, getting in there in the paint. Chris Bell just doesn't seem to be that type of player. And I don't want to make this like the Chris Bell bash session. Chris Bell brings value to the court. There's a reason that Jim Boeheim, believed in him to put him in the starting lineup, because he's a talented offensive player and this team needs offense. So Chris Bell's going to have a role, but Chris Bell's learning the hard way that you got to do a little bit of everything, right? Benny Williams. That's why we didn't see Benny in the lineup last year, because there were certain things he had to learn about his game that we're now starting to see pay off. He's much better around the basket. He's developed a great jump shot. He's more aggressive on the rebounding end. Jim Boeheim, as a matter of fact, wants him to take it to the hoop a little bit more than he has been. And I think we're seeing Benny develop into the player that he can be. We mentioned John Bull. Now, John Bull is limited offensively. That's the problem. He's got to be right around the basket to be effective offensively, but he rebounds, he hustles, he's a great defender. The intangibles he brings to the court make up for the fact that he's kind of limited on the offensive end. So this brings us to, and story time again quickly here, because Donna DeToda wrote a great piece today on syracuse.com that you guys should check out. And the headline is this: Syracuse's next opponent plays with blazing pace, how Brian Earl is building a contender at Cornell. Let me see if I can pop the link here in the chat in case you guys haven't seen it. Hopefully that shows up in the chat there for you guys. You can certainly find it on syracuse.com. If not, I believe it showed up there. So you should absolutely read this story that Donna wrote, because so here's Colgate, who comes in a few weeks ago and knocks off Syracuse for the second straight year. So Colgate has kind of announced itself as not just another non-conference banked win for the Orange, right? They've done an incredible job building a consistent Patriot League contender at Colgate. They can shoot threes, they can score. They're not intimidated by Syracuse at all. Brian Earl, as Donna points out here, is doing the same thing at Cornell. They're a 7-2 team. They when they come to the Dome on Saturday, they would have been off 10 days. So we'll see if that actually helps Syracuse, because they've had a couple more games in that stretch than Cornell has. But Cornell went to Miami back on the 7th of December and almost knocked off the Hurricanes. It was 107-105. So that tells you right now, this team can score. They're not intimidated by ACC teams. They're certainly not going to be intimidated coming to the Dome on Saturday. And given, the flaws that Syracuse has, Cornell can absolutely come in and make this a game. As Donna writes here, seeing fast exhibitions of running and shooting, Earl got to thinking. He researched basketball teams that played with pace. He considered his roster, which included a lot of players he believed were similar in skill and competency. He bounced ideas off his brother, Dan, who's the head coach at VMI, and his good friend, Matt Langle, the Colgate coach. There's the connection right there, right? Colgate has found, look, the formula is to shoot threes, right? But it's pace, and it's this style, and it's how do you challenge these bigger teams and make a mark? In this case, it'd be in the Ivy League, right? Whereas Colgate's in the Patriot League. As Donna notes here, last season, the first in what she describes as the ultra-fast era, Cornell infiltrated this traditional stronghold of Ivy League teams, Penn, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and made the Ivy League postseason tournament for the first time in 4 years. The Big Red did lose to top seed Princeton. Last year, Cornell finished third in the nation in offensive pace. This year, they're fifth in the country in offensive pace. Its average time of possession on offense is 14.8 seconds. Okay. That is quick. As Jim Boeheim noted, it's a fun way to play basketball. They have multiple guys that can play guard and forward. You got to have shooters and guys that can handle the ball and shoot the ball. They have them all. Okay. This is going to be a fascinating game because Syracuse has struggled with teams that go at pace, that can shoot threes, that are going to challenge them offensively. Now, sometimes that can kind of kick you into the kind of game you want to be in, right? I think you're always better when you're playing at pace, you're in the flow, you're not using up all the shot clock. Like you're just playing the game, right? So if Syracuse can get on its game and take advantage of some matchup advantages in that game, they'll be fine. Here's the thing, though. This is what I go back to a moment ago. 3-point shooting. Do they have the 3-point shooting to keep pace in this game? Chris Bell's going to have a few threes off the bench. Gerard's going to have to be on his game. You're going to need Justin Taylor to come in and give you 2 or 3 off the bench. You're going to need open shots to be made. You're going to have to value. Now, you'll get some possessions back at the pace that this goes, but you can't give too many possessions for a Cornell because they'll go right down and score. Next thing you know, they're going to be on an 8-0 run, a 10-0 run, a 12-0 run. Syracuse has got to come out strong. They have had slow starts in a number of games this year. Monmouth, it was a very distracting environment, as we said, at the Dome on Monday, but they got to be sharp. They got to be ready. Syracuse, like I said, has had a couple more games in the books than Cornell, so hope maybe Cornell will be a little rusty in the first half. You got to jump on that and just erase all doubt from your mind that Cornell can come in and compete in this game. As Rob says, is it similar to the system ran with Hank Gathers and Loyola Marymount in the 80s and early 90s? I don't think it's quite that, but that team, boy, Loyola Marymount dropping. I remember you'd wake up and watch Sports Center in the morning, and they're beating teams like, 130 to 105, right? I don't think it's quite that hectic, but they can go at pace. They can score. They're top 5 in the country there, as we noted here. And I'll give Earl a lot of credit there. That's how you stand out at an Ivy League school. That's how you stand out if you're Matt Langle at Colgate. What do you do that's different that will attract players, right? And can contend. It's like the opposite at Princeton. Princeton ran those backdoor cuts for years and went at a slower pace and had to do something completely different than just trying to keep pace with teams kind of in a regular sense, right? That's what it feels like Cornell's doing, what Colgate's doing. And can you imagine a non-conference slate, which ends on Saturday, by the way? After this Cornell game, it's all ACC all the time. They get Pitt on December 20th, a little bit of a break for the holiday, and then on New Year's Eve, Boston College, and into ACC play they go. Shout out to Louisville, by the way, who got its first win of the season last night. My goodness, what has happened at Louisville? Beat Western Kentucky, I believe. They're January 3rd on the schedule. So look, that's a manageable start to ACC play for Syracuse. But if you go into ACC play with non-conference losses to Colgate and Cornell, all due credit to what they've done, but you're still Syracuse. You cannot have that on your resume, and you cannot have that from an optics standpoint as well, that those two schools in the same year came to the Dome and beat you. That will not be good at all. As good as Cornell is, and all due respect to them, but you're still Syracuse, and you're supposed to be at a level where they cannot come in and threaten you consistently at this point. So that is going to be a fascinating game to watch in a lot of capacities. And we'll be right here on these same channels you're watching. We'll keep the football page off for that one on Saturday night. But post-game show to come on Saturday. We're definitely going to hop in, kind of review non-conference play, see how that game goes, get you ready for ACC play. And we will definitely hop in and bring you a post-game show Saturday. Let me double check my time here on that one. I believe that's a 7:00 tip, but I just want to double check myself here. Syracuse, because they've been changing times left and right lately here. Syracuse Cornell is actually, I was wrong. It's a 3:00 tip time. Okay, so we got a 3:00 tip between Syracuse and Cornell. I'll be with you after that game. We'll do some post-game coverage. Same thing we're doing now. Your comments and questions, instant reaction. We'll chat a little bit after that matchup on Saturday afternoon. So get right back here on Saturday, and we will do the thing. 3:00 tip time on that one, right? Thanks for watching today. Thanks for hanging with us here on Orange Weekly. Congratulations once again to Coach McIntyre and the soccer team on their national championship, and an amazing story there. We'll continue to track what's cooking in the transfer portal, coaching changes, everything going on with football, and of course, this interesting story that is continuing to develop with Syracuse basketball in a tougher than you would think matchup against Cornell coming up on Saturday at the Dome. Orange Weekly is presented by Crouse Health. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week. If you're up here in Syracuse, get the snow blowers ready, get the shovels ready. We got our first significant winter storm hitting here starting tonight and into Friday morning. About a foot of snow or more, depending on where you are in central New York, a little bit more north of here, a little bit more east of central New York. But hey, at the very least, it looks like we'll have a white Christmas. So that's the good news in all of that. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again Saturday after the Orange take on the Big Red.